I have the White Sox ranked 28th. Fangraphs agrees with me. They are the 28th ranked team in baseball. The goal is to kind of lose games at this point in the year. At this point in their rebuild, they are kind of not good, and they just traded away Dylan Cease, which my projections were from before that, but nothing really changes. They were going to be bad before that anyways. They're going into a rebuild. The disappointing thing about this team is they had potential. They were a 90-win team, I think, in 2021, and then they kind of fell apart as of late. Like it's interesting to see that this team was young, had potential, they had so much talent, and they just could not win. Key additions this offseason would include, I guess, Brad Keller as a pitcher. They brought in the most traded player in MLB history, Jesse Chavez. They brought in Kevin Pillar, Joe Barlow. They brought in Paul DeYoung to potentially be a shortstop to replace one of their key subtractions, Tim Anderson. They also lost Elvis Andrus. I didn't even know they had Tyler Naquin, but they released him. They also lost Liam Hendricks and Mike Clevenger, who was pretty solid a year ago. They also traded away Aaron Bummer. They got Braden Shoemake, Nicky Lopez, Jared Schuster. They also got Mike Soroka. They also got Max Stassi. So they also have Dominic Fletcher. They brought in a lot of kind of talent. They also traded away Aaron Bummer, obviously. And they also traded away Dylan Cease, one of the best pitchers in baseball, or kind of disappointed a year ago. The starting pitching rotation does not look that good. J.C. Schulten's had Tommy John surgery, so he's not going to play this year, but he was pretty solid last year. They have Prelander Baroa, who is projected to be okay, but he's also injured at the moment. Eric Fetty is the projected ace of this staff, according to Fangraphs. They have Eric Fetty, Mike Soroka, Chris Flexen, Garrett Crochet, and Nick Nastrini. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But they also have Jared Schuster, who was in the trade to the Braves. They also they got Jared Schuster, who is a starter, who just has not had a lot of time in the big leagues, a former top prospect. So I think he's probably going to end up in the rotation by year's end. I would be shocked if he's not in the rotation at the end of the year. They also have Jake Eder, who's a top prospect in the minors. Their bullpen doesn't look good. Michael Kopech is supposed to move to the bullpen this year. They also have Touki Toussaint as well. So I can see potentially Michael Kopech becoming either going back into the rotation or becoming the closer by year's end. At catcher, they brought in Max Stassi and Martin Maldonado, two kind of veteran guys who are defense first oriented, maybe trying to get their young pitchers to understand how to pitch. They're not good offensively. Max Stassi's a little bit better, but Maldonado is a World Series champion. They got Edgar Quero from the Giolito trade at the deadline a year ago. He's a top prospect that could make it to the big leagues in the next few years. He might end up being the catcher by August, let's say. First base, Andrew Vaughn getting a second chance to kind of be the everyday guy. He has been solid, but not what you want him to be. Andrew Vaughn's an okay batter, but you wanted him to be like the Jose Abreu replacement. Hit like Jose Abreu used to with a 101 OPS plus. That's not quite what he was able to do a year ago. And you're hoping he can continue improving. But at this point, he's 26. I don't know how much improving is left for Andrew Vaughn. At second base, they have Nicky Lopez projected there. He's a really good defender. He's a very good defender. He's just not an offensive piece. He's not good offensively, and the White Sox are just not good. It's that simple. But that's not necessarily the story. At third base, you got Yohan Moncada, another guy who was a highly touted prospect, had some really good seasons. He was in the Chris Sale trade, and it's just interesting to see how he has kind of declined into like an average offensive guy. Defensively, he's really never been good at third base. I think he was originally a second baseman. So, I don't know. It's interesting to see. I'm not sure what he's going to do. He could bounce back. I wouldn't be surprised. then you got Paul DeJong at shortstop. He's replacing Tim Anderson. Paul DeJong's been a guy who's been disappointing for years, a few years in a row now. I think he could bounce back. He could be surprisingly good, given everyday playing opportunity. I wouldn't be surprised. Left, you got Andrew Benintendi, who's a contact first guy. He's one of those guys that if he's not hitting for contact, if he's not playing amazing defense, he's really not that good. And that's kind of the difficulty here with Andrew Benintendi is he's inconsistent. And at center field, you got your best player on the team by far, Luis Robert Jr. There's potential where they can trade him, get some pieces. Him and Eloy Jimenez are the two only solid hitters that I actually have confidence in on this team going into this next year. But a guy who I think could surprise people is Dominic Fletcher. In 28 games in Arizona last year, he had a 791 OPS. He batted .301. He had a .7 WAR in just 28 games with a 115 OPS plus. Yeah, his BABIP was 377. So, yes, I think he's not going to be elite or good even, but I think he could potentially surprise some people. I forgot to mention, at shortstop, Colson Montgomery is the future of the shortstop, the future shortstop of this organization. He's like the top prospect. I think if Paul DeJong struggles, Colson Montgomery could be up by July. The bench, you got Kevin Pillar, solid defender out there, but he's kind of old. Gavin Sheets has some potential as well. My personal over-under is 65 on the dot. I would bet the under. Vegas says 63.5, and I would bet the under. If you're betting for the Chicago White Sox this year, 63.5, bet the under.